iReddit, so you don't have to.
I drink to make the monster go away. Story by RobotVampire.
A day, an anniversary, for which its significance I have completely let slip from my memory, stalks me every year. I can feel it creeping up my body as my fingers tremble and a relentless itch burns behind my eyes. I request time off from work when my hands start to shake so much that I can't even sign my own name. If I can't get those days off, I quit. I need time to prepare, time to recover. It's a day that I can't fight. I can only run as far as I can, for as long as I can. It's the day that, it's the day that I get completely hammered. I have to drink. I have to run. Drinking is the only thing that slows down the figure that follows me that entire day, that entire anniversary. I can feel its eyes tugging at me as soon as the leaves begin to change color. I often catch a fraction of his face, shyly peeking at me from around corners. Wide, horrified eyes pierce through me, as if it's staring at me in disbelief. It becomes braver as the day approaches. Graduating from hiding behind corners, it stares at me through dark windows and eventually watches me sleep from the foot of my bed. I know it's the day when I wake up to the sound of my shower running. I get up to turn off the shower and see the distorted figure of my stalker through the opaque curtain. It's always curled up and sobbing. When I slide the curtain to the side, nothing is there but the rushing stream of ice-cold water from the shower. After I turn off the shower, I sift through my closet and grab the same suit I wear every year on this night. I keep $200 worth of 20s in my front right pocket and a large coin in my front left. I never look at the coin. Something deep inside me prohibits it. Throughout the night, I caress one of the sides with my thumb, and I don't have to see it to know that the number 1 is embossed onto it. After I'm dressed, I fast for the remainder of the day. I need to get blasted as quickly as possible. I fill up a flask with cinnamon-flavored bourbon, just in case I get too drunk to enter any bars. It almost caught me last year, and I need to be prepared. I would just drink at home. It definitely would be a lot cheaper, but I need to keep moving so it won't catch me. I start the night off at a country bar called the Moon Saloon, because they serve dollar beers from 4 to 5 p.m. I know the old rhyme, beer before liquor, never been sicker. But I found that when I've been fasting, I need to work my way up to liquor. I can drink about 10 beers before my lanky pursuer shambles into the saloon. It dresses in a suit similar to mine, except I'm a bit embarrassed to say that the quality is much nicer. Throughout the night, its face gradually deforms and distorts. At this point, it usually has eyes that are swimming through its own flesh, circling around its head as if they were caught in orbit. The mouth is a gaping black hole, and pulsing in size. That's my cue to move on to the next bar. I head to a pub called the Corner Tap, where I upgrade to mixed drinks. Tequila sunrises are my go-to, but I may throw a Long Island iced tea in there if I feel like I'm falling behind. I make sure I don't get distracted in conversation or by what's on TV. Instead, my eyes bounce between the entrance and the large window looking out to the patio. I can drink about 5 mixed drinks before I see it outside, sulking towards the front doors. This night in particular, however, I only made it to 2. I was shocked to see it trudging through the entrance, like it was fighting for each step. While it was slower than when I saw it at the saloon, it was much faster than it should be right now. Its body was gangly and had disproportionate limbs extending a foot out from the cuff of its sleeves. The flesh on its face now swirled around its skull. The eyes, ears, nose, and mouth swirled with it as they were caught in the current of a whirlpool. I dug into my pocket for cash, slapped down $40. I squeezed the coin resting in my other pocket as the creature's long, spindly arms desperately reached out for me. I kept my eyes glued to the monster, backed away, and slowly circled around the pool table. It towered over everyone as it followed me, while my eyes were fixed on the stalker's swirling head and the bony frame supporting it. I felt the collective stare of the entire pub as I walked backwards through the exit. Once outside, I jogged to the next bar on my list, the Admiral's Choice. I wear running shoes in my suit now. I learned last year that dress shoes are a liability if you need to run from that thing. Once I stopped jogging, I got in line for the bar. My head began to spin. The booze was beginning to take hold of me. I felt like I needed to throw up, but I wouldn't let my body reject the alcohol. As soon as I felt the burn of my stomach acid in my throat, I forced myself to swallow it back down. Once I approached the bouncer, I tried to act sober as possible. He almost let me in, but my body retaliated, and I threw up at his feet. Out of sheer embarrassment, I covered my mouth and ran away from the now furious bouncer. I had to change my plans. I didn't feel like I was too drunk, but the jogging definitely upset my stomach. The next bar on my list was a dive simply named Good Times. I usually save this bar for last, since they don't have a bouncer and they never give me a hard time for being nearly blackout when I come in. The bartender knows me, and when I ask for a whiskey double, she usually pours me 4 fingers. By the time I was on my 5th whiskey double, all of my attention was directed at the bar's front entrance. I tightly held the coin in my pocket, anxious for when the creature strolls in. As time passed, and as my paranoia ballooned, I decided it was time to get back on the move. I pulled $80 out of my pocket and left it on the bar. However, once I stood up, I could feel the floor shift beneath my feet as if I were walking on a waterbed. Fuck! I fell. The world was swirling around me. I was fighting against gravity itself when I felt a hand clutch my arm. A hot flash of terror shot through me. I threw a balled fist in the face of whatever was grabbing me. Fuck! The bartender was in the arms of the other patrons. Her nose was bleeding. Fuck! I took off running before I was fully standing up, but somehow I managed to reclaim my balance and dash out the bar. I could hear the angry cries of, "Fuck you!" and "You're fucking dead!" echo behind me as I sprinted down the street. I ran about 5 blocks before I had the courage to check if anyone was chasing me. I was in the clear. My chest cavity felt like a liquor-soaked bar mat was stuffed inside of it. I could feel myself wanting to vomit, but I closed my eyes, leaned against a brick building, and fought off the urge. Cold, needle-like rain began to lightly shower over me. I launched myself from the brick building with my forearms and stumbled backwards. A parked car caught me before I landed in the street, and immediately erupted in an explosion of flashing lights and a steady honking alarm. Vomit spewed from my mouth and nose, washing over the entire passenger side of the car. My hand slid through the throw-up on the window as I stabilized myself long enough to stand. The flashing lights intermittently washed over a tall, wiry figure slowly walking towards me as if it were underwater. I backed away from the creature. Its head was now vibrating, like it was a bowl of fleshy water sitting on top of a loudspeaker at a concert. Its limbs appeared to be boneless and curvy like a pool noodle. I reached back into my pocket and held my coin as tightly as I could. "Hey, asshole! The fuck are you doing to my car?" Fuck. You've got to be kidding me. Behind me was a large man, fast walking to give me a first-rate ass kicking. In front of me was the nightmare I've been running from for years. My feet moved before my brain had time to think. I tried dashing across the street, but a car intercepted my attempted escape. I rolled over the hood and felt the glass of the windshield crack beneath my back. The driver got out and asked, "Oh my god, are you okay?" as I rolled off the car to continue my sprint. I cut across the street and ran as fast as I could to the park. In mid-stride, I glanced over my shoulder at the scene I left behind me. The person who hit me was on the phone. The large man silenced his car alarm, and the creature was bending down in the middle of the street, picking something up. My veins burned with each heartbeat. My lungs felt like they were completely absent of air. I kept running until the roar of the city faded, and the still silence of the park embraced me. I poured myself onto a park bench and focused on breathing. Minutes passed before the acidic burn in my chest subsided. I reached into my suit jacket and pulled out the flask of cinnamon-flavored whiskey I had prepared. I took 3 large, burning gulps and welcomed the warm numbness that washed over me. After patting my left pocket, I realized I had lost the mysterious coin after the car hit me. As I lamented the loss of the coin, a bright light beamed directly at me. I remember thinking that I must be dying. This was death. I wasn't scared, though. I took a few more sips from my flask as the light grew brighter and brighter.
Had a few too many drinks tonight?
A voice asked. I raised my hand to shield my eyes from the light. I saw 2 dark figures that I wasn't able to identify until I heard voices chime through the static of a radio. "No, ma'am," I lied. 30 minutes and 3 failed sobriety tests later, I was handcuffed and placed in the back of their police unit. The officer stood outside the vehicle, inaudibly speaking into their radios. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the headrest, letting the world swirl around me. I nearly fell asleep until I heard a steady tapping at the window. When I opened my eyes to see what was tapping, I saw the creature, hunched over, peering into the back seat. I was eventually placed in the drunk tank. The smell of bleach and the bright fluorescent light was overwhelming. It was as if the sober world was eagerly trying to seep in. but the alcohol refused. My eyes were heavy. The last thing I saw before sleep claimed me was the abstract, surreal creature slipping into the cell. I woke up hours later. The hangover was beginning its throbbing assault on my head. No one else was in the cell, aside from one man who was sitting next to me. His stare was relentless. I sat up and was beginning to scoot away when he placed a hand over my wrist, stopping me. He wore an expensive-looking watch and neatly polished shoes. It wasn't until I got a good look at his suit that I realized that this was the creature that was stalking me. My heart pounded. Fear burned through my veins and my skin chilled over. "Hey," the creature gently said. "Hey," I replied. My pursuer extended his open hand out to me. Resting on top of his palm was what I could only assume was the coin that I had dropped. Reluctantly, I looked into its eyes. I was expecting its eyes to be bestial, malicious, and evil. Instead, they were disappointed, sad, and familiar. The creature was me. Not me as I am right now, but a better me, the me that I could have been. It was a full manifestation of all the promises and potential that I had wasted, that I drowned. He was the embodiment of every kind thought, word, and belief my friends and family had for me. He was the future that I had so fondly dreamed of, but avoided through absent neglect. He was the me that I told myself I would be if I could just go 1 year sober. He was a reminder of why I hate myself, why I drink. He was a living, "I told you so." My hot, watery eyes returned to his hand. I plucked the coin from his palm with trembling fingers. It read, 1 year sober, with a large embossed 1 in the center. Tears streamed down my face as the bleach-soaked jail floors and the fluorescent lights seeped into my world. I had nothing to say, but the other me repeated one sentence for the remainder of my time in jail. "I don't forgive you. I don't forgive you. I don't forgive you. I don't forgive me." Thanks again to RobotVampire for sharing his story. What did you think? Leave a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe.